Hey guys, I thought I'd make a quick help me video for 6.3 talking about our data analysis and our quartiles and all that stuff. Special shout out to Caleb for asking about this. There are errors on the answer key for 6.3, so if your answers that you're getting do not match up with the answer key, that's not surprising. There are errors. I'm going to point out exactly what they did that created those errors, and hopefully this will help. So this is straight from your notes that you have if you're actually in my class. So remember that quartiles, the root word of quart means fourths. We're going to break things, or four, we're going to break things up into four pieces here. So we take our entire data set, we find our median, which is going to serve as our second quartile. We then have a lower data set, and we find the median of that, which will serve as our first quartile. And then we look at the upper data set, and we find the median, which serves as our third quartile. Now, what's easy about this data set is it starts with an odd amount of numbers, and then when I put my 11 as the median, it kind of disappears. It's no longer part of my lower or my upper set. So now my lower set only has 5 values, so I can easily find the middle of 5 being the third value, and my upper set also has 5 values, so I can easily find that middle. Now, the note right here at the bottom is super important, and that is where mistakes can happen if you don't pay attention to that. For a set of data that has an odd number of values, you do not include that median in either half. So that's what I meant about that, like, disappearing. We don't use it in the upper or the lower half. Once I determine it's the median, it's gone. So I'm going to look at a couple different problems here with a different number of data points. So I'm going to get rid of this box because I actually don't need that now. So first thing we always have to do is order our data. We can't work with data unless it is in order from least to greatest or greatest to least. We like to put it least to greatest, working left to right. So then we're going to find the original median, and then we're going to find the other two medians of the lower data set and the upper data set. So let's go ahead and look at this problem. I'm going to grab a highlighter. So when I look here, I see that I have 9 data points. I always want to count how many data points I start with and make sure that once I order it, I have the same number, because it's very easy to forget one of your data points. So since I have 9, I know that the middle of 9 is going to be the 5th data point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 on the left side and 4 on the right side. If you are the median, you should be right in the middle. So now I know that my quartile 2 is right there at 27. So now this creates an issue. Now my lower half of the data has 4 points, and my upper half of the data has 4 points. So we say, well, the median is right in the middle. Well, that's easier said than done, because when I look at right in the middle, well, right in the middle of 4 numbers is right between the second and third number. So wait a minute, what is my quartile 1? My quartile 1 is not actually one of the values in the data set. My quartile 1 is going to be calculated by finding the average between them. So to do that, I'm actually going to take the sum of 22 and 24. Sorry, I forgot my mouse also, so this is a little bit more difficult for me to do, typing everything out. So I sum my 22 and my 24, and then I'm going to divide that whole thing by 2 to find the average. Say divided by 2, and I'm not going to show the whole process on everyone. And this is easy. You should have been able to realize on your own that right between 22 and 24 is 23. So it's obviously not that hard of a process. With numbers like this, it's a little bit harder when I have some decimal values. But I'm going to have to do the same thing to find what's the third quartile up here. Sorry, fighting with my arrows. So right between 32 and 33, well, we can go ahead and just kind of figure that out on our own. That would be at 32 and a half. So now we're going to look at a data set with 8 data points to start. So when I start with an even number of data points, I'm going to do that same process of finding the average of the two values, but I'm going to have to do it to find my quartile 2, or my original median, because notice if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, my quartile 2 would be right here between 51.7 and 52.7. So if you need to do the math, we could just sum 51.7 and 52.7, and then we could average it by dividing by 2. and that would give me, well, I see that they're only apart by a value of 1. So I know that really right between them will be halfway further. So it's going to be 52.2 will be that middle quartile. But because that middle, that quartile 2, your median, is not a value in the data set, now my lower data set has 4 data points and my upper data set has 4 data points because I did not use one of these numbers. Where in comparison, once I use the 27, since that is a number in my data set, it's gone, and now my lower has 4, my upper has 4. Here, I didn't use one of the data values, so I still have all 8 data points split up into 4 in the lower and 4 in the upper. So now to find my quartile 1, I have to do that same process over again. I know that it is going to fall right between my second and third data values of the bottom set. So since I have 45.5 and 49.8, that's a little bit more messy to work with. So let's just go ahead and sum those. So 45.5 and 49.8. And then because I need to average, we're going to divide by 2, except I missed a decimal point, which is a huge issue. Divide by 2, and we get 47.65. Again, not one of our data values in the set, but that's okay. It is still my quartile 1, and if I was making a box and whisker plot, I would make that the left edge of my box. We're going to do the same thing for quartile 3. It's going to fall right between your second and third data values. So we need to sum those data values and then divide by 2. So we have 53.2 plus 59, and then I divide by 2. Make sure you sum before you divide by 2 because the order of operations is always followed very rigid on your calculator. And we get a value of 56.1. So I was making a box and whisker plot with that. My minimum, my first point would be at the 41. The edge of my box would be at 47.65. The middle line of my box would be at 52.2. The right edge of my box would be at 56.1. And the final dot on the right connected to the whisker would be at the maximum 72.1. So I'm going to show you one more here with an odd number of data points to start. So I have my data set here that has 9 data points, and Caleb, this is the question that you had specifically asked me about in your message. So there is an issue in the key, and I'm going to now explain why there's an issue in the key. When I have 9 data points to start, finding the original median is not that difficult. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th data point will be in the middle. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know I have even sets on the right and the left. I'm good. That is quartile 2. Now in the answer key, you'll notice that they tell you that quartile 1 is 37. Quartile 1 is not 37. Here's the problem. If you use the 45 as part of the lower data set, which we can't do, then 37 would be in the middle of that data set. But since we can't use 45, we only have 4 data points out here, which means that my quartile 1 is going to fall directly between the 32 and the 37. I see that 32 and 37 are 5 apart from each other, so that I know the distance halfway between them would be 2.5. So I can determine that my quartile 1 would be 34.5. It's 2.5 above the 32, and it's 2.5 below the 37. I can do this, I can do the same process here for my upper data set, finding quartile 3. I need to find what is directly between 51 and 58. Well, the gap between them is a gap of 7, so I know half of that will be 3.5, so I can add that with my lower value or subtract it from my upper value and get that my quartile 3 should be 54.5. So again, those 2 quartiles do not have to be points in the data. Actually, none of your quartiles have to be data points. It all depends on how many data values you start with and how it gets broken up. So if you still have any questions about how to find these quartiles or how that would transfer into actually making the box and whisker plot, please let me know. Aside from that, don't trust that answer key for 6.3 at least, and if ever it seems a little iffy, if your answers, you're fairly confident that they're right and the answer key does not agree, shoot me a message. I'll check it and I'll see if there's any issues, just like this one. So Caleb, thank you for asking that question. Hopefully this helped you and a bunch of other people. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.